Oh, hello everyone. Welcome back. This is two live streams in one day. Holy moly. Thank you so much for joining us. As you probably already know, we're in the middle of a big fundraising campaign. We've got four amazing nonprofits who serve the games industry trying to stay in the game. I've been chatting with each of the executive directors of each of the nonprofits all this week, and we are wrapping up the last in this series with Nika Nour, the executive director of the IGDA Foundation. Hi, Nika.
Hey Anita, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Solid.
Um, Thank you for joining me. I'm excited to chat with you. I've got a big question to start us off with.
Okay.
A lot of folks have heard of the IGDA, the International Game Developers Association, but they don't know that the IGDAF, the IGDA Foundation, is a totally separate entity. Can you explain the difference between these two orgs?
Yeah, our two organizations act like cousin orgs. So you have the IGDA, which is a professional trade association that supports developers, people in their careers, people aspiring, in a global scale. And that's a very resource driven, awesome entity that's run by my friend and colleague, Renee Gittens. The IGDA Foundation supports and solely focuses on amplifying diversity and inclusion initiatives. And we look at how we drive very direct impact to people with socioeconomic diversity needs, neurodiverse needs, women, LGBTQ communities. I mean, just like the faces and spaces that you don't see in games that we just need more of. I don't think people, like, we talk about diversity inclusion like this big, like, gargantuan cloud, but I don't think people really understand like how difficult it is, and people don't really know how to help. And so we like drill down, and like our policy, at least since I came on, is like we look to be really micro ambitious. And so like we dig deep and we look at, okay, this year we're going to support X amount of people. Let's fly them to GDC. Let's figure out how we get their first jobs. If they, didn't have a great experience because they were discriminated against or harassed or had a terrible boss, like let's go put them in a studio that's going to welcome them and their diverse opinions. Because it doesn't matter like what your gender is or what your race is or what you look like. You should be able to work in this industry based on the merit of your expertise and your dreams and what you want to develop. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like the point you're making about how we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion, which are also two separate things. That's why there's two different words for them. But folks don't know what to do or what it means to do to actually like contribute to that. So like what are some of the ways that the IGDF is actually working to improve. So, and actually, let's clarify this. Sorry, like the difference
Right.
between diversity and inclusion. I think is an important one that might be worth sussing out here. Do you want me to do it? Or do you want to do that?
Well, like for us, I mean, right, the words go hand in hand, and it gets complicated, right? Because people try to think about what does diversity mean, and that is a very different and almost loaded term for at least our organization because we're global, right? That the words mean something different in every country and every continent. And we don't think through all of those cultures. So for us, when we do look at diversity and inclusion, we look at what are the spaces in the industry where people aren't really feeling welcome, where their opinions aren't really being heard, or they're not empowered within the workforce to succeed.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And we try to really make sure that we break down those obstacles. I'd love to hear kind of like the way, not just your interpretation, but like the way that you kind of outline it for folks when you're working on the hotline.
Sure. So generally, when I try to explain the difference between them, I like to talk about like hiring practices as a really concrete example. So diversity is literally just having different, like you're literally different people in a room, right? And so whether that is identity, background, cultural, location, all of those things. Inclusivity is the piece that I am really interested in because you can say, hey, we need more women, and we're going to set these goals to have an equitable workplace in regards to gender. But once they get into the workplace, what is the culture? And inclusivity is really about the culture of an environment, right? It's about like, is it would be very easy to say we're going to hire more women and people of color and insert them into this very white male cis het culture that has existed in games for a really long time without ever changing the dynamics of that space to be welcoming, to be inclusive, right? To be more understanding and open up space. Because just because you hire women doesn't mean you're actually listening to them. It doesn't mean that they're actually able to contribute meaningfully to make change in the industry. And so they have to, those have to go together. You can't just do one without the other.
Right. So. I love when people talk about hiring and workplace practices when people are especially looking at delivering a head count. My second question is, that's awesome. You've increased, your percentage of your workforce 40% by women. Let's just use women as an example. I'm like, now what position are they at? Okay, right? Like, are they in leadership? Are they decision makers? Are they empowered?
Yeah.
Or did you just hire a bunch of interns and call it a day? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, that's kind of how you start integrating spaces. I mean, entry level and internships are great for that. But they're not going to stay if there aren't people in management, with like that level of authority,
and
making decisions or showing them a better way.
And we're using women as an example, but that's obviously not exclusive to that. But retention of women in the games industry is really low, and retention is a part of that inclusivity conversation of like, sure, you can hire them, but are they going to want to stick around? Because maybe you are committed to doing more mentorship in your workplace, and you are hiring at entry level positions, which is great, but also like you have to provide a space that is welcoming and inclusive to those folks. So to retain them, or else they're going to bounce out, and we're going to keep having an industry that is dominated by white men.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why we run 3 programs traditionally, right? Our 3 programs that we usually run, we have the IGDA scholars. So this is students from various levels, PhD all the way to undergrad, that are looking for their first job in the industry. They come from different countries, they come from different backgrounds, they're people of color, women, you name it. And we go through like thousands of applications, and I want to like help all of them. I absolutely do. And this is a program that's been running for 15 years. Our second program it's our Velocity program. This is helping women get their first job in games, or they were in it, left the industry, exactly like we were talking about, and they're thinking about maybe giving the industry a second chance. And then our last program, which is awesome and is like totally, we get a lot of help basically from Xbox on this, is focusing on people with different backgrounds that are mid-career, whether they've been in the industry for like 3 to 7 years. And I think that's really important for retention, because once you're in the job, you can't just like, ask someone to pick their brain, or, try to figure out like what's the next step or what's the next job, because you don't want your boss to find out that you're looking or that you're asking, even if it's for personal growth. And so that's, we try to grease the wheels to make this easier. It's not a perfect solution, but we're very much dedicated to these folks.
Oh, that's great. So it really is looking at across a timeline of experiences and what did those unique time periods in someone's career need in terms of support to make sure that we're maintaining the inclusivity along the way. I think that that's related to, like, you bring in young people, and how do you help them stay to get into leadership roles? Yeah, that's great. One of the things that this came up with when we talked to Kate Edwards yesterday of the Global Game Jam, who's also a partner in this Stay in the Game Relief Fund, which you can donate to right now. At givebutter.com, stay in the game. You might already be there. If you're not, you can head over there. But one of the things is the international aspect of the Global Game Jam and the international aspect of the IGDA Foundation. I think we often neglect or forget about like geopolitical ramifications of like certain parts of the world where there either isn't enough technological access, or can't get visas to get into the U.S. to go to GDC, for example, or other issues around development in more of the global South. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh gosh, not only can I speak to that, we had that happen to us. So it has just been a slog of a year, which is fine. This is what we do. We roll up our sleeves. I'm in this gig because I want to get my hands dirty and help people. What I didn't realize that what that came with is that, video games aren't exactly accepted or a reputable gig in every country outside of North America. I forgot for a minute how lucky we are and how much I probably take our access to connectivity and to technology and games for granted. It's, even jobs. And like this year we had two brilliant grantees from Pakistan who had their visas rejected before even the coronavirus stuff hit. So they already had this obstacle of like, explaining to the local government that, hey, no, this is going to further my career and growth in video games, which, as you can imagine, people are like, you want to go to the United States to play video games?
Right.
like, no, this is good for their careers. They're going to learn, they're going to bring it back to their community, they're going to build, they're going to innovate. Oh my gosh. So they were so entrepreneurial that after they got rejected, they built a game during a game jam on their experience of, getting rejected to fly to the US. And it went viral. I mean, every major news outlet, etc., wanted to speak with them and they wanted to talk to them. And they were, and obviously one of my fears as an ED is to make sure that they aren't facing harassment online, that when people go from like, hey, I'm just an aspiring game dev to having this sudden spotlight, making sure that they're protected, that their location is protected, that their identity is protected, that they are, in an okay format. So we didn't realize that there's so much more to helping these communities and in different parts of the world than just here's a ticket to GDC, come and enjoy. There's a lot of little things that people don't think about that you really have to dig into because it's just not cut and dry. And it really, to get that high touch value, it requires that people to people interaction.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work.
Do you remember the name of the game? Some folks in chat are curious if they could look it up.
Can pull it up. I think it's called Trying to Fly.
Oh, cool.
Trying to Fly. So you can pull it up. I'm happy to drop the link on my Twitter or etc.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many challenges. So I was really fortunate. I was able to go to a games conference in Cape Town, South Africa, for the last 2 years, and learning about the African games community at large, right? Specifically the South African games community, but larger, and just the challenges with infrastructure, the challenges with access, a lot of the same racial issues that plague development here in the U.S. are there. It was one of the whitest conferences I'd ever been to, and it was in South Africa. I was like, what is happening here, right? So having actually access for people of color to get, just to get into the events, to get access to the schools and the trainings and all of that, I think is really a big deal. And folks trying to get into GDC as their ticket to growth, as their ticket to getting into the industry, and it's so expensive to fly here,
Yes.
Yeah, there's some really, real big barriers.
That's why, and we lost so much in the cost, but you can't fault anyone for it. What our programs usually do is we give all our grantees that come, we give them a stipend, and that stipend includes it includes food. It includes hey, by the way, you're going to be on your feet. So if you haven't been at a conference for a while, buy some shoes, good ones. Honestly, yeah. We give stipends, buy shoes, buy whatever. And I have grantees that are okay, I'm so ready to go. And, they don't understand why we give them the certain amounts that we do, especially based on needs. And I'm like, no, save that for food. Because, if you come in and you're a grantee from South America and you are in a conference in San Francisco, your salad's $12. For some people, they don't even the price differences don't work.
Huge.
And GDC's been great partner to us in terms of making sure that we have those tickets and that access. But um, access is critical. And that's what I'm really, really worried about, Anita. Bless you. You're good. I got it. I didn't mean to call it out.
No, I've literally
But
sneezed on every stream. I don't know it, but it's not like I've been sneezing at any. Maybe I'm allergic to streaming. It's fine. Please continue.
no, I think the thing that people aren't recognizing, and it's so easy because we're stuck at home and we as people are trying to figure out how the heck do I get through tomorrow? How do I navigate this? When is the world going to open up back up? How do I make my mortgage? What's going to happen is that in this short gap of us individually figuring stuff out, these folks in these communities and these aspiring developers are going to fall on the wayside because access is literally like the fastest way that I can help people is through my own contacts, through my 10 plus years of working in so many different jobs, getting them to conferences, that people to people interaction. Because it's right, this is such an industry that's based on who you know and people vouching for people. And the longer we're apart and the less connected we are and the less introductions we're making, the longer those careers are going to be on the wayside. And it's going to go to people who don't have these obstacles, who don't have these challenges, who already kind of know people. And that's really like, I wouldn't say it's one of my biggest fears of this current situation, but it is what's keeping me up at night, is thinking through how we pivot as a community and how we use the foundation to work with partners, to work with people, to work with developers who care. If you don't care, that's fine. But if you do, like this is the nexus to reach out and make sure to find those communities and find people who are stuck at home behind a computer that didn't get to graduate, that don't have a paycheck, that are like, holy smokes, what am I going to do? Other than like them, you know, people just blanket applying to whatever they see on LinkedIn.
Right.
It's which doesn't work, by the way. Have you ever gotten a gig off of a LinkedIn application?
No.
I haven't.
No. Although LinkedIn is weirdly really important, I've learned lately, but like also not like LinkedIn is bizarre to me.
Yeah. So like, it's just, we have an opportunity because people already know, oh, I can apply to the foundation to meet new people. And now it's about making sure we have that support and we kind of dive into those networks to capture who those folks are and then put them in front of, you know, people with hiring and budget authority.
Yeah. I know that for a lot of organizations like ours, in-person events are really critical and for our whole industry, like you're saying. What are you seeing now in terms of how the industry is responding to this moment so that, again, it's not just like, see you next year, but that we do stay connected? And are those, you know, whatever it is that's being set up in those ways, are they actually addressing those that are the most vulnerable or those with the biggest, those with the least networks? That's a weird way of saying that, but you know, the people you're talking about.
They're not because people don't know how to reach them. So like right now, everyone's that like they've officially hit pause. Everyone, and I get it, right? Like you work in a large company, you're trying to figure out what is our big policy, how do we protect our current employees, like what are we doing next, how long is this going to go, what is the what are the restrictions and the orders and staying at home, people to try to figure it out. I totally get it and I sympathize because in addition to figuring out how to do their jobs, they're also like, how do I take care of my 5 kids or 2 kids or whatever, how do I teach 2nd grade math, right? Like there's just so much of this relearning that we're doing, but at the same time, our industry is moving. Like we're not like other industries that have completely shut off. I get that game use doesn't necessarily mean a big increase in revenue, though that's not the same everywhere, but this is a real moment for games because you have a lot of people who are fearful, who don't know where their next paycheck's coming from, that are stuck at home, they're playing games, and you have mainstream media talking about how great games are doing. But if leadership and the industry doesn't come together to support the communities or support the nonprofits that have been really helpful especially for folks that don't have this access or are falling by the wayside, it's not a good look.
Yeah.
So as a foundation, I can't speak for every nonprofit, but I am not going to stop like knocking on doors. I am not going to stop with the endless Zoom calls. You are going to see me in your inbox. You're going to see me in your LinkedIn. You're going to see me in your Twitter stuff because I'm not doing it for myself. I was there. I remember, Anita, I remember the 2008 economy. I remember like telling my parents, hey, there's no, my parents they're so Persian. They're so like, their only jobs is to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. My family's idea of an intervention was to like see if I was willing to become a dentist. And
I know this. I know this well.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
And I hauled my ass to work and to school in that economy. I remember walking in 3 feet of snow as a freelance photographer to make my cash, to prove my worth. I would get off of work at 3:30 and like work remotely on the metro and come back from grad school at 1 a.m. And I hustled and I hustled and I finally made it. But it did not have to be that hard. I had people throw my resume away in front of my face. I had people tell me that I didn't look professional enough because truth be told, I really didn't know how to dress for a job. I still believe that we would have had the cure to cancer because the most brilliant guy in the room probably didn't shower or wear a suit to an interview, right?
Yeah.
Like there is a way that our society is wired that where those bias and perceptions do matter in interviews. Well, and the foundation.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. This is an aside, but that's sort of the opposite in games now, right? With the rise of tech, if like you go to an interview not wearing a hoodie, you're kind of like, oh, right. Who's that well-dressed person?
But the hoodie is our suit.
Yeah.
The hoodie is our suit, right? Like they're the up and coming folks that are trying to.
What does that mean? Like, remembering what happened to the economy then, what does that mean for us now? Like, what is that looking like in terms of the work that you're doing and trying to learn from that moment to help folks today?
Yeah. I mean, the first is everyone needs their breathing space. You take on the bandwidth that you can. And that's first and foremost is you take care of yourself. And once you kind of have like a grappling of this new normal, then it's reaching out to these communities. We already have 60 people that are displaced from not being able to go to GDC. So rolling up the sleeves, let's go. And right, the first step is almost like a level of resilience and leadership training, like how you get through this day to day and what you can do to better yourself, to take this opportunity to have the time you have at home, polish up the portfolio, start reaching out to people on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it is. Like, sometimes it's not ideal to reach out to your heroes, but sometimes those heroes are actually really solid people. And it's going to be a level of breaking into the industry. And all it takes is like 2 people in the industry to say, you know what, let me introduce you to so-and-so. And all it takes is for you to learn that at the end of every coffee, Skype, whatever meeting, to say, can you introduce me to 2 more people? That's how you start building your network. And because people are at home, because people aren't like on the go, this is actually an opportune time to build your network until we figure out where the world goes next. And that's the part of the resilience, is to say it's okay to ask. If the worst thing is that they say no, just remember who they were. I still remember how people treated me when I was an intern. I still remember the way I was treated. I still remember the way people talked to me. I still remember the way people looked down to me. I also really remember who helped me. I remember the woman who said, let me see if I can just put a desk behind our office door and call you our intern until you figure it out. I still remember the woman who went to her boss and said, she's brilliant. Let's just put her on for 5 hours a week so she gets the experience.
I really like that advice of just ask if you can be introduced to 2 more people. The people really like being asked for advice. That's one thing that you learn. And so, if you are new to this space, just be like, hey, can I pick your brain for 10 minutes? Can I get your advice on this particular thing? And most people are happy to do that. The other thing that I was about to say that's gonna come back to me if I keep talking slowly, it's gone. Um, yeah, it totally went away. I was thinking about the advice thing, but oh, I remember. I'm sorry. You, I think it's really hard for people to ask for help in general. And one thing that I have learned is that if you don't ask for what you want, you'll never get it. You might get a lot of no's along the way, but if you literally just don't try, like if you are too afraid to even make that ask, you're just never gonna know. So you're better off at
Right.
least trying than not trying. Now that we're talking into like the whole networking nonsense, I know chat is having a whole conversation right now about how bullshit networking is, and in a lot of ways it is, but in a lot
Oh,
of ways
absolutely.
it's just it is still often I lean on my community when I need to get things done. I like, for example, this whole fundraiser came together because we all happen to know each other or kind of know each other,
Right.
and we're able to make those introductions. So, ask for things.
Yeah, and oh, sorry, I
No,
didn't mean
please.
to. No, it's just I get where people are like, oh, networking is a slog, and that's why for me, I I retrained my brain to be like, I'm not networking, I'm building relationships, because once you start thinking about like, do I want to talk to this person again in 2 years? Networking gets a lot easier because you just don't waste your breath anymore.
Also, here's the trick. I'm going to let you all in on the trick. And this is
Okay.
not really relevant right now, but when we get back into in-person things, the trick is that, and this I hate about this, but the trick is like partying. Like the trick is literally like going to events and just hanging out. It's not so much like, yes, definitely do the advice thing, but just like be cool and hang out with people, and that's how you build relationships, because you'll remember that one person that you hung out with at this one thing, and then you'll hit them up at some point. Like, I here's a dumb story. I was looking to
Oh, I
throw
want
a
to hear
big
this.
party. I mean, it's not a good story, but I was looking to throw a party to wrap up the Tropes versus Women in Video Games project. And we were going to call it Party versus Video Games. And I was very excited about this conceptual party that I had in my mind to wrap up this 5-year long project. And I couldn't find a location that would donate to us, and we couldn't afford to pay for space. I happened to be at the Nordic Games conference, hanging out with friends, and like a group of people sort of like glommed together that 3 days that we were at the convention, and we all sort of hung out. And one of those people that I hung out with happened to work at Google in San Francisco and happened to have an office space that we could have the party in. Like, it was just purely coincidental. I just happened to be like, I need this thing to a empty room of like, like, so sometimes it just takes like getting to know people in a casual way, and so maybe if it's less thinking about like networking and just so much as like meeting people and making new friends
Yeah.
can be really helpful in it, because yeah, networking blows, man. Everyone it's a tough, difficult thing, and I think that sometimes you just have to lean into it or reframe it in your minds, because that's how it goes. We do have a question in chat that I want to bring up if I can.
Sure.
It says, what if you're embarrassed about how little you've done and how little time you have? Well, I guess how little
Ooh.
time you have sounds like you're dying, but and how little time you've had in this space.
Um, Gosh, really good question. Here's the thing. Like, however, a lot of the things that you think about, and I'm gonna like botch it and then I'm gonna like reframe it, but like a lot of times, like the way you feel about yourself, like that's not how people perceive you. I know that sounds weird, but like when like my best job seeking moments that I absolutely still love and remember is when I had no experience. Because you could just go and tell people, I have no experience and I'm looking for some, and this is my dream and I care, and you can make yourself look as big as you want, and you could just say, this is my dream, this is my goals, I'm hoping to get there. I know I'm not going to be, a COO today, but can I just like shadow you or intern for you or get an entry level gig, and I will get all your copies, I'll take out the trash. I mean, I was like, I will make your life easier if I could just work for you. And I would go to like people that I found aspirational, that I absolutely loved, and I used my inexperience as a way to get my foot in the door. But you have to do it like in a way that isn't like desperate, right? But like you go like I literally, right? I still remember, gosh, I made like a list of 100 people that I thought were awesome. Um, news alert, like not everyone is awesome, so you will actually get disappointed along the way. There's a lot of people that you love, or you
I know
see
you're
on
like
TV
meet
or
your
in Twitch
heroes
streams.
is always. I'm just
No,
like
it's not. It's such a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I will say, like, for those who do like Anita, she is actually awesome.
Wow.
So just
Thanks.
want to put that endorsement. She is totally great. It has been a dream working with you. It's so nice. But also that level of embarrassing, gosh, I so know that feeling. You will actually get over it by like door number 6. So like pick like in your list of 100, pick like your least favorite 5 and just start there. Like whatever it is, whatever your vice is, right? If you need to like meditate, do yoga, have 5 beers before you send that perfectly crafted email, maybe two beers. Like start with low-hanging fruit, because once you're on a roll, once you start getting those emails out, once you start meeting with people, it becomes easier, and that kind of goes away. You're not going to know, you're never going to know unless you try. That's all I can say. And there are going to be things that you will do that will scare you. You're going to get advice that makes no sense, but the only way you're going to get over some of these things is if you just have to kind of go for it. And honestly, like, because we're in this pandemic, just start with an email or a Twitter DM. If you're worried about what it sounds like, review it with someone. I can't tell you, like, I'm right now stuck in pandemic with my boyfriend. I still talk out loud about my emails or what I'm putting in a Slack with people that to make sure it sounds right. I'm like, does this sound right? Do I sound whiny? I don't know.
Oh man,
talk it out with
I have a lot of my stuff reviewed before I put it out there, for real.
Do
like,
you?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Big time. Big time. I mean, not every email, but I still very much like putting stuff out in the world. I often have looked over. It's not a bad, I like to work collaboratively, and people are usually happy to review something or read something. So I love that you do that too.
But then sometimes if I hold off on it, then so I'm like, sometimes I'm literally like, write the email, lots of typos, hit send. Like, and it's out, and I can't undo it. All right, we're done.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It depends on the person.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how this turned into a networking 101, but I think the chat was here for it. And I'm happy. I enjoy talking about this stuff because it's like been a part of my life for so long that you learn how to navigate it. And I think, Nika, you're totally right. Like, it's awkward and weird at first, and like it becomes easier, right? It becomes easier over time. And like, you might be surprised at what doors open for you and what opportunities you have by doing that. So.
Oh my God. And it works. Like, none of us as the 4 EDs, I've only met Kate Edwards once last year at E3. I've not met any of you guys in person. So yeah. Pandemic networking can happen.
Yeah, it totally can. I mean, I met Eve because when Me Too hit the games industry, I was like, what are we going to do? And I just reached out to everyone and asked everyone to introduce me to other people. And then Eve and I just were like, cool, we're going to do this work and we're going to end abuse in the games industry. And that just opened up a bunch of doors to you. And I've known Kate for years. We are at like every conference together. But that's how it works, right? You just reach out and you just talk to folks. And I know it's easy for me to say because like I am a known quantity, but like I wasn't always by any means and had to do that work too to get to this point. So bringing it back before we wrap up, we're the IGDA Foundation. We were talking about like the important work that it's doing to bring in more diverse voices, more inclusivity, really practical steps to help folks in the industry, networking aside, but also that is a huge part of this, and opening that up and those opportunities up to those to folks who don't traditionally have that access. So yeah. So thank you for joining us. I'm really glad we got to have this chat. So Nika, obviously you've been here, works with the IGDAF. I work with the Games Hotline, and we've got 2 other nonprofits, the Take This and the Global Game Jam, and we're all a part of this large campaign right now called Stay in the Game Relief Fund. We are working to keep our doors open. We're working to continue doing this work that promotes diversity, that it promotes inclusivity, supports mental health, So if you can, please consider giving a couple bucks to us at givebutter.com/stayinthegame. You might be on that page right now watching this, so you just hit that little donate button right up top. And if you're on Twitch, you can just head over there and help us out. If money's tight, I know money's tight for a lot of folks right now. It's a very difficult time. If you could help us spread the word, that would mean so much to all of us. I also, one last housekeeping thing, mark your calendars because next Thursday, one, is the last day of the fundraiser. But more importantly, we are doing a big Feminist Frequency birthday bash right here on twitch.tv/femfreaks. So that will be from 5 p.m. Pacific to midnight. We will be releasing more information throughout the next week. So please, please join us for that. Nika, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, Anita.
Let's kill this fundraising goal. I shouldn't say kill. That sounds gross. But let's crush it. Let's crush it.
No, it's going to be awesome. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having all of us. Really. You've been such a gem.
Oh, thanks. And thank you to the mods in chat who are always wonderful and do the important work here. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.